wing. It's good! Pokusevski takes flight as SGA plays through the contact, banks it in on the foul.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Uncontested Post-Game Podcast Edition. I am your host for tonight, Justin, as OKC fights, scraps, claws, but ultimately falls to the Phoenix Suns, 104-124. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that we are proudly part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and the official podcast of SI Thunder. If you don't already, be sure and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. We'd greatly, greatly appreciate it. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for all your Thunder content needs. But tonight, the Thunder return to basketball action following the All-Star break against the first place Phoenix Suns. But the Thunder weren't the only return, as the Thunder have the return of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well. A momentous night for OKC. Shai comes back in magnificent fashion. Did not look like he had missed 10 games. The youngins held their own against the best team in the NBA, albeit not a full strength Phoenix Suns team, but still an impressive performance. Lots to talk about, but we have to start with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai tonight, 32 points in 35 minutes, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. He was magnificent. And I must say, I missed watching Shai play basketball. I don't know about y'all, but it was fantastic. He was getting to the rim. He was making nice passes, just doing all the Shai things that Shai does that make watching Thunder basketball fun. He looked like his old self. The rust, I think, showed mostly early. He had 6 turnovers tonight. 4 of those, I believe, came in the first quarter. Rust early, looked a little sloppy, trying to force some passes, to be expected. You know, he had a long break, 10 games, but also included the All-Star break. That's a long layoff for Shai, but he came back with a vengeance. Leading this Thunder team, especially like in the third quarter, he looked fantastic. He looked really, really good in this one overall and just changes the way this team plays. And on that note, was really interesting to see him play alongside Josh Giddey tonight. I think that's probably one of the most interesting dynamics that we'll get to keep an eye on for the rest of this season is how do Shai and Josh Giddey complement each other, play alongside each other. We had some comments from Mark Daignault in a recent press availability where he kind of alluded to how those two can play together, how they can share the floor and each accentuate each other's strengths, not step on each other's toes, not be duplicative, but really complement each other. And some of the things he talked about was the ball movement and the open threes that the Thunder were able to find when Josh Giddey was running the show. So I thought it was very interesting tonight to start the game. It seemed like Josh Giddey had the ball in his hands a lot more than Shai did. He was kind of taking the load of the creation and the initiating of the offense to start this game. As the game went on, I think it evened out a little bit more. I think some of that could be easing Shai into it. I think it's also just kind of experimenting, seeing what this team can look like in these different scenarios. The good news is, we've seen Shai have a ton of success playing more off ball in the year that Chris Paul was in Oklahoma City. We got to see that firsthand. We know he's capable of it. He didn't do it, once Chris Paul left for many obvious reasons. But now that Josh Giddey's there, and I think with what we've seen from Josh Giddey's kind of initiating, assist creating type of moments for him, it's an interesting discussion. I think it'll be something very interesting to watch how those two play alongside each other for the rest of the season. While I gushed about SGA already, Josh Giddey as well, putting together a stuffed stat sheet as has become his normal. 15 points tonight, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. What more can you say about the kid? He is just packing the stat sheet night in and night out, dominating this team in rebounding, leading them in rebounding again tonight, and 6 assists to boot, leading them in assists, tied with Trey Mann at 6 assists. He's doing it all. You got to see it a little bit on the All-Star weekend in the skills competition. I think Giddey showed up very well in that competition. The kid's got lots of skills. Who knew he'd do well in a skills competition? I think kind of getting on a national stage a little bit before the game. They gave him his Rookie of the Month award for January. I'd say let's go ahead and get the February one printed with his name on it. Let's make it 3 in a row. I don't think there's any argument there. He's been on a tear, and tonight just seemed to be a continuation of that. No all-star hangover for Josh Giddey, as he played a really, really strong game. Similar to Shea, a few moments where he's forcing some things, maybe trying to do a little too much. The Suns were utilizing a little bit of trapping on both of them at different points in the games, and the Suns are really good. They're the first place team for a reason. So some of those struggles are okay when you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, who's decidedly not the first place team in the NBA. You can live with that. We got to keep the streak of young guys alive, though, because there was a lot of youth movement in action for this Thunder team tonight. That at one point there was a lineup on the floor of Teo, Mann, Krejci, Poku, and Roby. And that could legitimately be like a Kansas Jayhawks Sweet 16 team right there. Sorry, Jayhawks fans. I can't give you more than a Sweet 16. But that's ridiculous. 2 of those guys are 20, 2 of them are 21, and Roby, let's say he's like 6-year senior starting his doctorate at 26. It's unbelievable how much youth talent this team has when you can trot out a lineup like that. And that lineup immediately went on a 10-0 run to really put the Thunder back in this game. This game started where Phoenix kind of came out of the gate and punched the Thunder in the mouth. Like I mentioned, some of that I think was due to some of the rust from Shea early. It was a little bit sloppy. Phoenix led 31-14 after the first quarter. OKC totally flips the script in the second quarter, outscores Phoenix 31-17 to make it a 3-point game at halftime. And they did that on the back of a couple runs. There was a 12-0 run, mostly led by those young guys. Then there was a separate 10-0 run later by the Thunder. Really impressive fight from this team. And it's what we've come to expect because they do it every night. And so if you're pissed about the Thunder tanking or the Thunder being 18-41 or not having players and just having a bunch of draft picks, if that bugs you, look at a game like tonight. They went toe-to-toe with the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, they lost by 20, but if you watch the game, you know it was a lot closer than that. They were in this game till the very end. It was a 5-point game with a couple minutes left. Phoenix hit a few threes and blew it open, free throws from there, and the score looks a lot worse than it was. This team is in the game almost every night. Memphis game excluded. This team is in it almost every night. And that is such valuable experience for these young guys, for guys like Trey Mann, for guys like Poku, Krejci, Maladon. It's such valuable experience to get to play in like meaningful NBA minutes when you're in a game against the defending Western Conference champions. That's awesome. Would you rather the Thunder be a middling, play-in team like the Atlanta Hawks? Cash in your chips, maybe make a playoff run, but then kind of live middle of the pack? I don't think that's where you want to be. So you have to take the developmental side of things and learn to appreciate kind of what the benefits are in the now and what the benefits are in the future. And I think tonight we got to see some of the young guys shine a little bit. They led some runs against this Suns team. And I want to talk about a few of those guys specifically. We have to talk about Trey Mann. He is blowing it up as much as Josh Giddey has been lately. A string of really impressive performances, kind of starting with that big night in Madison Square Garden before the All-Star break. Trey Mann has looked very impressive. His shot creation and space creation is unbelievable especially for a rookie. His ability to step back, create space, to be shifty. I mean, the guy is just shifty. He looks like a glitch when he's moving out there. It's like Vanellope von Schweetz. Sorry, I have kids and we watch Wreck-It Ralph a lot. But he's just bouncing around and he looks unguardable at times. Now he shoots 5 of 13 from the floor tonight, 1 of 6 from behind the arc. Not ideal, but we've seen the numbers he can put up when those buckets are going in. And even on a night where his shot wasn't necessarily spot on, he's still affecting the game. He's still bringing a net positive to the floor. He had some really, really good minutes. None probably better than the play where he is leading the fast break, throws it behind the back to Poku, who skies for a slam to cut the lead down against the Suns. That is what it's all about. Those moments for the youth, that's awesome. The 25 people in the stands at the Peak tonight. Shout out everybody that braved the icy roads to watch this game tonight. They were loving it. So let's talk about Poku. I will take any and every opportunity to talk about Aleksej Pokusevski tonight. 13 points, 1 of 3 from behind the arc, 5 of 10 from the floor, 7 boards. Solid night for Poku, and his minutes were so fun, as they always are. Poku does nothing subtly. Everything Poku does is loud as can be. That dunk on the fast break on the behind the back assist from Trey was loud. A few seconds later, he had a really big 3 late in the game. He just makes noise. He is always doing something, and tonight, really, really solid minutes from Poku. It was just fun to watch him, and it has been fun to watch him over the last few games now. It feels like he's a little bit more locked in and engaged. I know that's a little bit cliche to say, but I think there's times where it just feels like Poku's not like totally deeply involved with what's happening on the floor. But I think tonight and what we've seen over the last few games is it feels like he is more intentionally trying to affect the game, to be aggressive, to go out and just like ball. And I think that's what you see from him when he has those G League stints. And for whatever reason this season, for the most part, he's been a little bit more timid in his NBA minutes. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that aggressiveness come out from Poku, which is really promising to see. Next, we have to talk about Vit Krejci train, as I tweeted on the account tonight. Shout out for the Ozzy Osbourne reference. 8 points tonight, 3 of 4 shooting, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal. Vit was making noise too, just having a game. Looked like he was having fun. He had a really nice dunk. Both of his threes were really solid. Looked like a good stroke. He was being really active all over the floor. Still super raw, but I mean, like, what a story. If you're looking for a feel-good storyline, to see Vit be around, be rehabbing, get re-injured, rehab some more, spend his time in the G League, finally get some minutes again. I think it was that New York game right before the All-Star break. But like, he played real minutes tonight for the first time. We got to see Vit not in garbage time. He played 21 minutes tonight in actual like solid rotation from Vit, and he made the most of it. If Vit and Poku can be like solid regular contributors on this team, that's awesome. Like, that's more than you can ask for. If those guys can make waves on this Thunder team, I think they're going to have a lot of opportunity, especially down the stretch. Similar to what we saw last year, I think we're going to see a little bit more aggressive roster exploration to close out the season. And if Vit and Poku and Lindy Waters and Teo Maladone and Olivier Sarr can make the most of those minutes, that's fun. That gives us something to watch. That gives us something to, kind of track and follow and get into. And it's a great story. It's super fun to see Vit out there doing what he does. He's got a lot of upside, a lot of potential. He's got a great frame. He's got a lot of really good ball skills. It'll be really fun to see what he does the rest of the season. I want to track back to something I said earlier about Shai and Giddey kind of playing together. there was a great quote post game that I wanted to make sure I mentioned on here, where Daignault was kind of asked about that, and he said that Josh is going to be on ball more, but the plan has always kind of been for that to happen more as the season went on all along. It wasn't just a response to Shea's injury. So I think that's really interesting. That this has kind of been the Thunder's long-term plan to get Shea and Giddey playing alongside each other, but get Josh some more on-ball opportunities later in the season. Like I said, I think that's going to be something really fun to watch as we go throughout the end of the season to kind of see how that dynamic evolves. How can they accentuate each other's strengths? It's really cool to see Daignault kind of outline that as being part of the plan all along. And I think that goes back to what we always say about the Thunder. They're not reactionary. They're not, oh, Shea got hurt. Oh, let's see what Giddey does. Oh, Giddey's been really good. Let's move Shea off ball. Like, they're not just kind of like panicking and swaying back and forth based on the circumstances. They've got a plan. They know what they're doing. They have a goal. I think the goal, I think that plays into some of the things I just talked about how the rest of the season is probably likely to go. They're willing to be a little bit more experimental in some of that type of stuff. Could be because it will likely lead to more losses and better lottery odds. I think that's a fringe benefit if you were to ask someone in the Thunder organization, but more so it's about putting those players in different opportunities to grow, thinking about their long-term development, who they can be as this team tries to ascend back to a championship caliber team, giving those guys that relevant experience and opportunity to play in unique situations. So they're just not, kind of checking in mop-up duty or kind of, playing off ball and not being fully engaged. They're trying to lock them in and get them in different situations that's going to help them long-term in their careers. Looking at the rest of the starting lineup tonight, not a lot happening outside of Shea and Josh Giddey. Bazley, 2 points in 26 minutes. Favors, 6 points in 18 minutes. Wiggins, 6 points in 21 minutes. Bazley, though, as he always seems to, he had a nice block on I believe it was a Devin Booker jump shot. He seems to be defending a lot better in space. He's strung together some nice games, a fairly quiet one tonight, but not necessarily like a terrible game. He wasn't making like mind-numbing mistakes throughout the game tonight. It was just kind of a performance. One game, as we've seen with Baze, it can go up and down a lot depending on where he ends up. But I think still a significant streak of games from Baze kind of heading into the All-Star break. Hopefully he can find that groove again as we come out of the All-Star break and really come into the home stretch of this season. Lindy Waters had a really nice block in the game as well. That he got something on the stat sheet in his 2 minutes coming in and locking up. I think it was Bridges. I may be remembering that wrong, but a nice little defensive burst from Lindy Waters. 9 points from Roby tonight. Only 2 points from Teo Maladone. And 1 minute with offers across the board for Olivier Sarr. Nothing too noteworthy with those other guys. But I think if you look at that really young core, acknowledging, the guys that are out, Shea, Giddey, Poku, Tre Mann, and Vit Krejci tonight. That's really solid contributions across a wide group of guys that I would say are the most interesting prospects this team has to offer in terms of future potential for the Thunder. No disrespect to guys like Roby or Maladone or Lindy Waters, but I think that it's pretty clear there's some separation between the future potential for some of these players. And I think you kind of got to see that on display tonight in terms of who performed and who didn't. Oklahoma City currently sitting at 18-41 after tonight's loss. That's pretty good if you're looking at the lottery standings. In the reversed standings, OKC sits at 4th behind the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons, who won again tonight, and the Houston Rockets. And right above, 1.5 games above, the Indiana Pacers. What's significant about that is the Oklahoma City Thunder plays Indiana tomorrow night. maybe Shea gets food poisoning. Someone actually asked if Shea was going to be available tomorrow, and he said he is fully cleared and available to play. OKC really needs to lose that game. That is one where the standings are so tight and you have an opportunity to create a little separation. That's a big swing if Indiana loses that game tomorrow night. So if you're rooting for the Chet Holmgren or Paolo Banchero, OKC needs to lose to Indiana. I don't care how you do it. I don't care who you have to sit. You do it. Oklahoma City needs that loss really, really bad. That's probably one of the most important games as we look through the rest of the season. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that one. Looking at the future schedule for OKC, they are getting back in full swing. Wow, my internet is sluggish. I'm trying to pull it up. Looking at the upcoming schedule for Oklahoma City. After the Indiana game, next Monday they face Sacramento, then at Denver on Wednesday, and then versus Minnesota on Friday. Sacramento, another very important game for the reverse standings. Minnesota, a moderately important game for the reverse standings. So some important games if you're looking at the lottery sweepstakes for Oklahoma City coming up. I would not be opposed to some full-on roster exploration. Let's let Teo start. Let's have Roby start. Those things aren't going to happen, but we'll see. That's the beauty of this Thunder team is, they're in almost every game, but that doesn't mean they win almost every game. Looking back, they had that one overtime thriller against New York, and that was the lone win out of the previous 8. So looking good for the tank standings. We'll see how that goes for the rest of the season. But it's hard to complain when you look at the assets that this team has. You look at the assets that this team acquired just in the last draft with Trey Mann and with Josh Giddey and with JRE and with Aaron Wiggins. That's one draft. And the highest drafted player was 6 at Josh Giddey. Gets real exciting when you start to think about next year and who the Thunder could add to an already impressive young core. It'll be very interesting because I think the clock is ticking, as we've all seen. How much longer can the Thunder kind of keep this up and continue to play the lottery odds and push for a top pick? It becomes harder and harder to see when you see what this team is capable of at full strength. When Lou's playing, when Shea's playing, when Giddey's playing at his best, when all those guys are clicking, this is a solid team. You add another top talent to this group, and it's a formidable team with lots of young talent that I think is poised to make waves for the years to come. So it'll be interesting to watch some of that development in real time, hopefully getting, extended minutes throughout the rest of the season, as well as watching OKC's obvious future stars in Shea and Giddey, all while keeping an eye on the upper echelon of the draft and hoping the ping pong balls fall Oklahoma City's way as we head to the draft next summer. Through it all, make sure you stay with us. We will be back with a post-game show after every single game, just like this one, live streamed and put in your podcast feeds immediately following. We also come together on Sunday nights for a weekly show where the whole group gets together. We can take a step back, look at the week as a whole and the week ahead, as well as some league-wide stuff. So be sure to check that out. Live streaming Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central. Again, dropping in your podcast feeds right after. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok for all kinds of Thunder content all season long. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Everybody dropping questions and comments. Really appreciate you. And until next time, Thunder